Welcome back, everybody, to another week and another episode of the worst of the war. As always, I am your friendly neighborhood dad hat wearing wrestling fan, reminding you to hit that like and subscribe button so you are alerted every time new content is added here on World Championship Wreckage's YouTube channel. Today, we're going back to the world of the WWF. But this time it involved somebody that was a big deal, at least in my opinion, and in the eyes of a lot of fans when he was in WCW. Today we're looking at Perry Saturn, and what makes him get added to the list for the worst of the war? Well, one word: Moppy. Saturn has always been such a fan favorite. Even if you look back in his early days, going back, look at ECW with the Eliminators. Great tag team, was showcased when ECW was brought into the WWF on those few episodes where Vince McMahon and Paul Heyman, kind of cross-promoted. And then, just like Raven, Perry Saturn showed up in WCW and was partnered with Raven and everything, and was a member of the Flock, and had great storylines and great matches, and stood out so strong as a single star. And then breaking away from the Flock and everything, he becomes a solid mid-card worker and everything, and he's put in that category, which, he's always going to be tied into that group that jumps from WCW over to the WWF later on. The Lord Voldemort and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn. You can always lump him with that group for his work rate. He was the enforcer of kind of that mid-card, that hardcore group of technicians that were in WCW at the time. I always had high hopes for Perry Saturn in WCW. He, like I said, had great storylines and feuds with Raven and Canyon, and even, changed his character up in WCW. But when we jump over into the world of the World Wrestling Federation, the Radicals was great. It was cool. It got a lot of people's attention. It was one of those, okay, here's four of the mid-card that WCW never let be main eventers like they should, and now WWF is going to have a chance to have megastars with these four who can put on tremendous matches. Well, that was true for two of them, at least. Lord Voldemort and Eddie Guerrero, champions, heavyweight champions. Dean Malenko, we see, good matches, a little success, had some good storylines, the kind of comedic with Lita and winning the kind of light heavyweight cruiserweight championship in WWE, WWF, whatever you want to call it this time. But Saturn, never, after a while, just never seemed like he could get his footing, which was sad. It made me sad to see it, because I always thought that he would be the breakout star of the group, because I thought that he kind of, he was a little bit bigger. He fit that mold of kind of what the classic what Vince McMahon is looking for. Plus the fact that before wrestling he was in the armed services, and we know how big into the military and the armed service that Vince McMahon is. So I always thought Perry was just going to get skyrocketed to the main event picture, and it didn't happen. So much so that towards the end of the Attitude Era, he gets sidelined with a prop, and that prop was a mop named Moppy. So with Moppy, it almost seemed like WWE, WWF was just recycling Al Snow again. It's a guy talking to an inanimate object, similar to Al Snow with Head. But this time it was a mop, and Perry Saturn called Moppy his girlfriend. It led to some weird storylines, again feuding with Raven, which, hey, I love those two together, but Moppy getting kidnapped and everything, and it was just kind of a shame to see someone that could be a main eventer and had a lot behind him, and a lot of people who to this day still love him, and wanted to see more sidelined with this horrible gimmick, which sadly, he just never kind of worked his way out of after that, and then he kind of gets forgotten. Anytime I mention Perry Saturn when we have guests on Wreckage, they're like, everybody kind of shakes their head like, he was great. He was great, but it's sad to see that he just got sidelined with a mop, and that's kind of how the career in WWF ended. It just makes me sad. As much as I love that group of the Radicals that came over and everything, it just doesn't end well for any of them, really. But Perry. All I can say is I wish there was a way that Perry could be used now, like as a coach or utilized as a manager somehow. But I don't think that he would ever get touched by the WWE today. So I don't know. But sadly enough, Perry Saturn, who had all the potential in the world to be a main event World Heavyweight Champion, never reached that goal. And that's going to do it for this week on the Worst of the War, ladies and gentlemen. Again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you are alerted every time new content gets added to our YouTube channel. We've got our flagship show, World Championship Wreckage, hosted by myself and the Will Gray, and always having a third or fourth and sometimes fifth guest chair, depending on the topic. And we want to make sure that everything is given the time and the due diligence to cover. Make sure that you follow all of our social media, WC Wreckage Pod on Twitter. We are now on Threads. Just search World Championship Wreckage. World_Championship_Wreckage on Instagram. We post the polls for our flagship show each and every time that the previous episode is recorded, so you guys can vote on what Will and I are going to cover. But we've also got other great shows like Creative Character Writing from our producer Jay Knows Wrestling, where he covers every weird, out there, forgotten, just crazy character and gimmick from World Championship Wreckage. We've also got Back in the Day with XLJ the OG from Cole TV, Pro Wrestling Newbie Reacts from Mr. B-Roll from Cole TV, and there's more stuff being added, guys, soon. I know I keep saying it on a couple of episodes, but we are working as fast as we can to get you guys WWF content, more of that on here, as well as ECW and some TNA. So be on the lookout. Follow all of our socials. We love you guys. Thank you for the support. And again, this has been another episode of The Worst of the War.